Hello and welcome to another video lecture from Mr. Watkins at mrwatkins.com. Today I'm just going to go over some very basic parts of a animal and plant cell. One thing you should note right off the bat, this particular diagram can be downloaded off of my website, mrwatkins.com. Also, please note that these cells, both of these cells, have membrane-bound organelles. And because they do, then that means that they are eukaryotic cells. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to kind of color code as I walk through this, and we'll see how well we can write on this particular sheet to where you all can see it. But bottom line is, the first piece here, it's right here. It's this piece right here, and it actually is a membrane. And over here on this plant cell, it goes right back in here in the back side here, comes all the way around. But this is a membrane inside the cell. It's called endoplasmic reticulum. I'm just going to abbreviate ER here. It is a series of membranes that is involved in protein and lipid synthesis. It's a transport system throughout the cell. Now the next thing we're going to look at here are ribosomes, and these are free ribosomes. It's going to be kind of hard to see, but if you can look real carefully here at the end here, these are little dots here, and these ribosomes, they're just chemicals. They're not free floating. I mean, they're free floating. They're not bound by a membrane, and these ribosomes are the spot where protein synthesis occurs. It's what reads the mRNA and converts that into a sequence of amino acids, which will eventually fold up and become whatever protein that needs to be used or made for that particular cell. Now, you should also note that down here on the bottom, these are pointing to the little dots that are on this endoplasmic reticulum. And this is also ribosomes down here, but these ribosomes attached to the endoplasmic reticulum, we then call that particular type of endoplasmic reticulum rough endoplasmic reticulum. So this type up here, where there isn't any ribosomes attached to it, is called smooth endoplasmic reticulum. Endoplasmic reticulum still has that same function of help transforming or transporting materials inside the cell. Think of it like a highway system inside the cell. Okay, so the next thing down are going to be these kidney bean shaped, these little bean shaped things that we have here. And this is the mitochondria. Now, mitochondria, you've always kind of heard that it's the powerhouse of the cell. And that's just not quite the way to describe it. They are these bean-shaped pieces, but they're not really the powerhouse of the cell in the sense that they generate power. What they do is take glucose and break it down or not glucose, but pyruvate, and break it down into a smaller chemical that can be used to run certain chemical activities that occur within the cell. So think of it more like a bank. You know, a $100 bill, you can go to the bank and get it changed for a bunch of $1 bills. Pyruvate enters the mitochondria. It's a process that's aerobic cellular respiration. That pyruvate, bigger molecule, lots of energy stored in there. Inside this mitochondria, that pyruvate is made into a bunch of smaller pieces called ATP, and those pieces are then able to do reactions, help run reactions, be an energy source for reactions within the cell. That's why it's called a powerhouse, because it does provide a smaller chunk of energy for that cell. You also should note that inside the mitochondria, it's got two membranes, and you can barely see that, but there's a squiggly line right there that indicates that. The next thing down is going to be this piece right here. These two right here, they're in both plant and animal cells. And I'm just going to color this one over here real quick. And then there's this one here. This is called the Golgi Apparatus. And my pen just broke. Golgi Apparatus or Golgi body. Okay, and the Golgi Apparatus or Golgi body basically repackages proteins and lipids. So at the ribosome, the protein is made off a template of mRNA. It may be on a ribosome that's on the endoplasmic reticulum. That protein is then transferred by the endoplasmic reticulum throughout the cell, eventually ends up at a Golgi body, where that Golgi body then helps with the rest of the process of folding up and getting that protein or that fat, that lipid, to be used within the cell or sent outside the cell. And then that Golgi body releases that protein in a vacuole, and that vacuole will either dissipate inside the cell and release the protein, or it will send the protein, the vacuole, to the cell membrane surrounding the cell so it can be released. That's the Golgi apparatus. These little circle things here, those are going to be vacuoles. Now, a plant cell has a rather large vacuole, and sometimes it goes by different names, but we're just going to say that it's a vacuole. When you get into college, you may find that they have a bigger name or a different name for it. But a vacuole's whole job is just for storage. That's its whole job. Now, this little piece right here, there's only one line, and it's only going to a plant cell, and those are centrioles. And centrioles, these little things here, they're made out of a specialized protein that we'll talk about later. But the centrioles' job is basically, it's going to be the site where the spindle apparatus forms, and then it's from that particular site where that spindle apparatus will form out towards the chromosomes when they do division, cell division. So basically right now it's involved in the process of cell division. We're going to get into more details later. This little vacuole here is called a lysosome, and a lysosome is a vacuole. It's a specialized vacuole. This is not the lysosome there, but it is a specialized vacuole that has digestive enzymes. So if the cell surrounds and takes in some material, it'll take it in, and then a vessel like this, a vesicle like this, will end up having enzymes in it to break down that food, and it does that digestion. Now, the next thing here is pointing to this dark spot here in the center here, this really dark spot here in this nucleus, and that's called the nucleolus. And the nucleolus's job, it is the site of protein, it's the site that makes the ribosomes for protein synthesis. So that's where the ribosomes get made. And then the big circle that it's in here, this big circle, and I'm going to color that over in orange, this big circle here, this is the nucleus. And again, the nucleus is absolutely not the control center for the cell. It is absolutely not the brain of the cell. The nucleus's function is for storage of the genetic material, of the DNA, of those nucleic acids. The control of what pieces get copied to make proteins, that occurs by special chemicals that are found in the cytoplasm, the liquid portion outside of all the nucleus, outside of all the organelles that basically the organelles are floating around in or are attached in. So please, please do not put control center, do not put brain. It just doesn't do that. It's a storage system. Like a filing cabinet stores files, it stores DNA. Now, this next thing here, I believe it's pointing to chromatin. We're going to skip that particular part for now. This piece right here, this one right here down here at the bottom, this is pointing to this inner layer called the cell membrane. It's also called the plasma membrane. The job of the cell membrane and the plasma membrane is to control the movement of materials into and out of the cell. That way, inside the cell has a different environment than outside the cell, and that different environment allows the cell to do things that it could not do if the environment was the same inside and out, that it couldn't do outside the cell. So it is a control, kind of like a gate, that allows materials into and out of the cell that need to go in there. Now, a plant cell has two other structures that are not found in animal cells. One of these structures is called a cell wall. Now, a cell wall has two functions. One function is for protection. The other function is for structure, to help hold the shape. It's maybe kind of hard to tell, but this plant cell has almost a cuboidal shape, a cube shape, where an animal cell here is got more of a round or spherical shape. Plants tend to hold this cube shape. Animal cells, they tend to be a little more wobbly in their shape or mushy in their shape. They can be spherical, but they can also have a rather different shape, such as this. And we usually see that, say, like in cheek cells, where this would be the nucleus, and then of course this would be the plasma membrane or the cell membrane that surrounds it. The last thing that a plant cell would have that you guys need to know that an animal cell would not have are these two big structures here. And there's more here. There's another one here, and then we're looking at the end of one here that's been cut. And this thing is called a chloroplast. I'm just going to write this over here so you can see it. You may not be able to see it here. And the chloroplast, its whole function is to capture light energy and convert that to chemical energy. So it's going to capture energy from the sun in the form of light and convert that to chemical energy so that the cell can then use that chemical energy to do the functions that it needs to do, such as cellular respiration or making proteins. These are the basic structures that are found inside a eukaryotic cell, animal cell and plant cell. It's important to note that centrioles are only found in animal cells. Cell wall and chloroplast are only found in plant cells. In plant cells, inside they typically have a very large or giant vacuole that's used to store water and a few other things there, some minerals and things, but mostly for water storage. Now, in the chloroplast, I'm sure that you've been taught this before, but I just want to remind you, there is a difference between chloroplast and chlorophyll. Chlorophyll is going to be the pigment that does the actual conversion of the light energy into chemical energy, whereas the chloroplast is that membrane-bound organelle. The last little piece here that we need to talk about is all the liquid portion inside the cell. Inside a cell there is a liquid, and it's not as liquidy as water, but it's certainly not as solid, say, as a jello or a gelatin. But it has a lot of enzymes in it, a lot of chemicals in it, a lot of ions in it. It's a special environment inside that cell that allows the cell to do certain chemical reactions. And even more specifically, the cell might have organelles like the mitochondria that do even more specific interactions on chemicals, and so they're even inside even another membrane on the inside of that. Again, you can download this picture right off of my website. This is a very generalized diagram of both an animal and a plant cell. Thank you.